welcome back to my YouTube channel where we learn to be a better programmer. In this video, I'm going to teach you about interfaces and how to use them in object-oriented programming. But before we get started, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on future videos. So in the last video, we talked about abstract classes, and we created an abstract piece that all of our subclasses inherit from. So we can create pawns, bishops, knights, rooks, kings, and queens that extend from that abstract piece and get all of that common functionality. Okay, so something to note about abstract classes is, and inheritance in general, is that typically you can only inherit from one class. This is specific to Java. And so that kind of makes it limiting, right? So there are certain cases where we want to have functionality in a subclass that we don't want to bleed over into other classes that don't need that functionality, right? So what we could do in an abstract class is we could say, here's a method that every piece is going to implement, right? So it's called getValidMoves. So we mark that as abstract, and then we implement that method inside of our concrete implementations, right? So that's one way of doing it. But what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at interfaces. So interfaces allow us to define a template for what functions a class is going to have. Okay, so the interface itself doesn't provide an implementation, but each piece that inherits or implements that interface will provide its own implementation. And then when we want to use a piece that implements that interface, we can just pass around an interface instead of the actual piece. So that basically abstracts away what concrete implementation we're using. We can just basically call getValidMoves or makeMove on whatever object implements that interface. All right, so we're going to take a look and see what this looks like in code. Okay, everyone, so here I am in IntelliJ, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new Java class. It's going to be an interface. I'm going to call it Movable. So this interface is going to serve to have all of the functionality that we expect a piece that can move to have, right? So the first method we're going to implement is getValidMoves, and this method is going to return a list of locations. And it's going to be called getValidMoves, and it's going to take in a board, like that. All right, and then next method is going to be return void and return nothing, and it's going to say make move. And it's going to take in a square. All right, awesome. So now what we can do is we can jump over to our pawn. So let's jump over to pawn. And then all we need to do is we need to just say implements movable. All right, so what this means is the pawn will implement the movable interface. All right, so we implement these methods and we see that getValidMoves is generated, and so is makeMove. But what we actually are just going to do is we're just going to say system.out.println this.getName plus, and we're going to say getValidMoves. All right, so we're just going to log what each of these functions, or which piece is getting called when we call each of these functions, okay? All right, so now I'm going to do this for the remaining pieces. Okay, awesome. So I have implemented the interface for each of the pieces, the concrete pieces. Okay, so here I am over in the game class, and if instead of putting abstract pieces here, I can actually just say pass in a movable like this. And instead of print piece, I'm just going to say movable, and I'm just going to say piece dot get valid moves, and I'm just going to pass in null. And I also don't want to system.out.println that like this. All right, so as you can see, it works if we either pass in a movable directly or a queen, which implements the movable interface. Okay, so if we run this, we see that pawn getValidMoves and queen.getValidMoves. Okay, so that's one great aspect of an interface. The next thing I want to show is how we can actually compose the queen's move functionality by getting the moves of a bishop and a rook. Okay, so So what I'm actually going to do is at construction time, we can say public queen piece color, and then we can also say movable bishop, and then movable rook. All right, and then we can say a super piece color, and then what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to create two fields, so private movable, private movable bishop, and then private movable rook. All right, so now I'm going to say this dot bishop is equal to bishop, and then this dot rook is equal to rook. All right, so now what I can do is basically just say, instead of this, I can just say list location, so move candidates is equal to collections dot empty list, and then I can say move candidates dot add all bishop dot get valid moves and pass in the board, and then move candidates dot add all of rook dot get valid moves of board. Okay, now, and then I can just return move candidates like this. So what this allows us to do is compose a queen of multiple movable interfaces. Okay, so we can take a bishop and a rook and then get the valid moves of each of those pieces and combine them and make it a queen. So also what we're actually going to do is we have to modify our interface. So we don't necessarily want to just pass in a board. We want to actually pass in, we're going to add a new method, get valid moves, and it's going to take in a board, but also a square, like this. All right. So what that's going to allow us to do is then say we can, implement this new method here. Okay, and then inside of bishop, we're going to implement that method as well, and then inside of rook, we're going to do it as well. Okay, so now what we're going to be able to do inside of queen is we can just say, instead of this, instead of passing in just the board, we're going to say this dot get current square. Okay, this dot get current square, like that. So basically we're telling the bishop move interface to get the valid moves given a board and the current square of this queen, and similarly for the rook. All right, and then just to illustrate what it would look like for the make move, we would say current square, so square current is equal to this dot get current square, and then this dot set current square to square, and then current dot reset, like this. Okay, and that's that. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you got something out of it. I think interfaces are extremely useful when learning object-oriented programming in terms of sharing functionality across multiple classes and being able to create concrete implementations of specific functionality. All right, if you liked the video, please feel free to like, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on future videos. All right, thanks so much.